They claimed Easter was canceled because everyone was busy. We'll all catch up next weekend, my mom said. Then I saw their group photos. Egg hunt, feast, matching outfits. Perfect Easter. They posted. The excuse they gave me later. I'm 26 years old, and I never thought I'd be in this situation with my family. We've always had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing that made me question everything. But this Easter, it changed everything. For some context, we're a pretty laid-back family. We don't do huge celebrations, and I've always been okay with that. My mom, Claire, and my little brother Max, who's 21 now, are the closest people to me. Our extended family isn't super involved, so when it comes to things like Easter, it's usually just the three of us. We do a simple meal together. Sometimes we do an egg hunt in the yard, and it's nice. Nothing extravagant, but it's our tradition. Or at least, it was. So, about a week before Easter, I started casually talking to my mom about what we were going to do for the holiday. I wasn't expecting anything wild, but I thought we could maybe have a little dinner. Max had been busy with his work and school, so I figured we could all just enjoy the day together. It didn't have to be much, just the three of us. But my mom, in her usual, laid-back way, said, "Well, I'm not sure. Everyone's kind of busy this year. We might just skip it, honey." Now, this didn't seem entirely unusual. Holidays have been a bit quieter for us lately, especially with Max getting older. He's been working more, and I've been spending a lot of time figuring out my own stuff. But I wasn't bothered at first. I understood that sometimes things get busy, and it's hard to coordinate schedules. A couple of days later, I reached out to my mom again, asking if we were still planning on having something for Easter. She replied, "We'll all catch up next weekend. Don't worry about it." And again, I thought it was fine. We'd see each other next weekend. I'd get to see my brother, and we'd have a family day. Then Easter Sunday came. I woke up expecting it to be a quiet, solo day. I didn't feel angry or upset yet. I just figured it was another low-key day. So I decided to go on with my morning. I made coffee, read a little, and kept myself busy. But as I was scrolling through Instagram, I saw it. A post from my mom. The caption said, "Perfect Easter with the fam." At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. But then I saw the photo. My mom, Max, and some of my cousins were all smiling in matching pastel outfits. My aunt was there, too. It was the picture-perfect holiday gathering. They were standing in front of a huge spread of food, lamb, potatoes, rolls, and salads. Behind them, you could see a yard filled with plastic eggs. Max was holding a basket, clearly just having finished an egg hunt. Everyone was smiling. It was a perfect family moment, a perfect Easter celebration. But I had been told that we weren't doing anything for Easter. I had been told that everyone was too busy and that we'd catch up next weekend. So what the heck was this? I stared at the photo for a few minutes, trying to process what I was seeing. I immediately felt a wave of confusion and frustration. My mind raced. How could they tell me we weren't doing anything, only to turn around and have a full-on holiday without me? Were they all just pretending I didn't matter? I thought back to the message my mom sent me the day before, telling me we'll all catch up next weekend. What was going on here? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but at that moment, it felt personal. Like I was being excluded on purpose. There's no way that something like this could just be a mistake, could it? I decided to text my mom. I didn't want to sound accusatory, but I couldn't help myself. The hurt was already creeping in. I sent, "Hey, I just saw the pictures of Easter. It looks like you all had a really nice time. But you told me that everyone was too busy to do anything this year. What happened?" She didn't respond right away, which only made my frustration grow. I stared at my phone, watching the little dots bounce as she typed and then disappeared. It felt like an eternity. Finally, a few minutes later, she replied, "Oh, sweetheart. I'm sorry. It wasn't planned at all, really. It was just kind of a last-minute thing. We all ended up at Aunt Patty's house because Max needed to run over there, and it just sort of worked out. I didn't want you to feel left out, so we thought it would be best to not make a big deal out of it." Her words didn't add up. Max had needed to run to Aunt Patty's house? He hadn't mentioned anything about plans with Aunt Patty. And since when did a last-minute thing involve matching outfits and a large spread of food? I texted back, "It's fine, but that doesn't really make sense. You're telling me that everything just fell together last minute? And now you're posting group photos of it all?" There was a long pause. I felt like I was waiting for her to offer some kind of real explanation, maybe a clue that would make it all seem less strange. But when her reply finally came, it only made things worse. "You know how these things go," she said. "It wasn't intentional. Don't make it into something it's not. Let's talk next weekend." Everything's fine. Everything was not fine. I knew something was off, and I couldn't let it go. I wasn't about to just accept her vague excuses. Something didn't sit right, and I wasn't going to let this slide. There had to be more to this. And that's when I noticed something else. A detail I hadn't caught the first time. In the background of one of the photos, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On a table, half hidden behind a bouquet of flowers, there was a small note. It wasn't obvious at first, but once I zoomed in, I could make out a few words written on it. The note read, "Tell my name. We're busy." My stomach dropped. My mom hadn't just forgotten about me. She hadn't just had to cancel plans. They had actively planned to leave me out, and now they were lying about it. The note shook me, but I wasn't ready to confront my mom just yet. I needed to understand more. What had I missed? Why would they go through all this trouble to exclude me? Was it just a fluke? A weird misunderstanding? Or was there something darker going on? I decided to do a little digging. The first thing I did was go back through the photos. I studied them this time carefully. My mom had posted more than one picture, so I scrolled through the entire album. There was one where they were sitting at a long table, laughing, eating, enjoying a meal together. Everyone looked so happy. There was Max, looking relaxed, not the usual stressed out, overwhelmed guy he'd been the past few months. And there was my mom, smiling with Aunt Patty. A smile that seemed almost too perfect. As I looked at their faces, something felt off. It wasn't just that I wasn't there. It was the way they were all so coordinated. They were dressed alike, yes. But their smiles, those smiles were practiced. They looked like the kind of smiles you put on when you're performing for an audience. Not like they were just enjoying a nice holiday together. I kept staring at the pictures, feeling more and more detached. I wasn't part of this anymore. They had their little circle now, and I was on the outside. I spent the next few hours lost in thought, thinking about everything that had happened in the past year. Max had been distant lately, and so had my mom. There were little signs, Max spending more time at his girlfriend's place, my mom's increasing focus on her friends and work. I hadn't wanted to acknowledge it before, but now I couldn't ignore it. I was slipping through the cracks. I picked up the phone and texted Max. I had to ask him directly. Maybe he'd know something more. "Hey, Max, what happened with Easter? Why didn't you tell me about the plans?" I was cautious, trying not to sound accusatory, though I was feeling angry and hurt. A few minutes passed before he replied, and when he did, I wasn't prepared for what I read. "Mom didn't tell you? We weren't sure how you'd react. It was a last-minute thing. Honestly, it wasn't even planned like that. Aunt Patty just invited us over. Don't make this a big deal, okay?" The words stung. He didn't even sound like himself. There was no apology in his message, no remorse for leaving me out. It was as if I was the one in the wrong for questioning them. It was that response that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just about one day or one holiday. It was about something deeper, something that had been building for a while. I let the message sit for a while. I didn't know how to respond. My gut told me that Max was caught up in whatever my mom was doing, that they were both in on something. It was clear now. They weren't just neglecting me. They were actively excluding me. The next day, I decided to take a step back and observe. I didn't reply to Max right away. I wanted to see if I was overthinking it or if there was more to this. I waited until the weekend came around, when my mom promised we'd catch up. I wasn't sure what that would look like, but I wasn't expecting an apology. My mom wasn't one for apologizing, especially when she didn't think she was wrong. When I walked into the house that Saturday, there was something different about the atmosphere. The house felt colder than usual, more distant. Max was in the living room, but he didn't look up when I came in. He was too busy with his phone. My mom was in the kitchen, humming as she made some tea. It all felt off. I tried to make conversation, but it felt like pulling teeth. I kept waiting for the moment when she'd address the elephant in the room, but she didn't. "So, how's everything been?" I asked, my voice quieter than usual. I was treading carefully, trying not to blow up. But the silence in the room was thick. My mom paused, looking at me over her shoulder. She didn't seem surprised to see me there, but she didn't look particularly happy, either. "Oh, same old stuff," she said, her tone nonchalant. Then she quickly turned back to her tea. I was getting more frustrated. She wasn't even acknowledging how hurtful her actions had been. I couldn't just sit there pretending everything was fine. "I saw the pictures," I said quietly, watching her face closely. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look up. That was a last-minute thing," she repeated, her voice suddenly defensive. "A last-minute thing? Really? Because it sure looked like you all had everything planned out. The outfits, the egg hunt, the feast, everything," I said, my frustration seeping through. Max shifted in his seat, but he still didn't say anything. My mom sighed heavily and placed her cup of tea down, turning around to face me. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, annoyance, maybe, but she quickly covered it up with that practiced calm. "Look, honey," she started, but her voice was sharp now, as if she was getting tired of this conversation. "It wasn't meant to hurt you. You weren't available anyway, and we didn't want to make a big deal of it. It wasn't intentional." I could tell she was trying to move past it, but the words didn't make sense. They didn't fit with what I'd seen. I felt my blood pressure rise as she continued. "And Max didn't know how you'd feel," she added, almost dismissively, as if I were the problem here. "He didn't want to upset you. So we kept it simple. That was it." They were both acting like it was no big deal, like I was overreacting. And that's when I realized it wasn't just a matter of a holiday. They had been pushing me aside for a long time, and now they were lying about it, minimizing it. It wasn't just about Easter. It was about how they had slowly made me feel like an afterthought. They had built this whole thing, this perfect little life without me. My mom's words hung in the air. I was trying so hard not to explode. But then something in me snapped. It wasn't just about this one moment anymore. It was about everything. The way they'd been treating me. The lies. The coldness. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't going to let this go. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, and with a calmness that surprised even me, I said, I don't think it's about the egg hunt or the food. It's about how you've been treating me for months now. Like I'm invisible." Max finally looked up, but there was no apology in his eyes. Nothing that resembled guilt. He just stared at me as if I were the one being unreasonable. And then, for the first time, I saw it. The real reason behind it all. The way they had turned on me. It wasn't just about this holiday. It was about how they had been planning to push me out of the picture entirely. And that's when I decided, if they were going to make me the villain in this story, I was going to rewrite it. But before I could say anything else, my mom's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face changed. I could tell the message was important, but I wasn't about to let them distract me now. I could feel the tension in the room as my mom checked her phone. It was like a sudden shift in the atmosphere. I could see her face change, her expression tightened, her lips pressed into a thin line, like she was trying to hide something. But I wasn't buying it. The way she acted in the past few months, her detachment, the subtle dismissals, I had been on the receiving end of it long enough to know when something was off. Max didn't seem to notice. He was still sitting there, looking uncomfortable but unwilling to engage. He had always been the one to avoid conflict, especially with Mom. But I knew that the more I pushed, the more they'd both be forced to confront the truth. They had made it clear they were done being open with me, so now it was my turn to stop pretending. "Mom," I said slowly, watching her as she tried to keep her cool. "Who was that? Who just texted you?" She hesitated for a moment, then put the phone face down on the table, as if that would somehow erase the suspicion. But I'd already seen enough. Her eyes darted to the screen, and I could feel the walls going up. I wasn't sure why, but something in me clicked. I had to dig deeper. And I was ready. I was just talking to Aunt Patty, she said, her voice casual, but there was an edge to it. Nothing important. Really? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral, but inside, I was seething. Because it didn't look like nothing important. That message looked like you were planning something else. She immediately tensed up. You're overthinking things. It's really not a big deal. But I wasn't overthinking. I could feel the gears turning in my head. Something wasn't adding up. How was it that just a few days ago, my mom had claimed the Easter plans were canceled because everyone was busy, and now, suddenly, they had this perfect family holiday? And why was she acting so strangely? I leaned forward, my voice dropping to almost a whisper. You know, Mom, I don't believe you. And I'm not going to let you lie to me anymore. It's not just about Easter anymore, is it? Max looked up from his phone at that, his face pale. What are you talking about? He asked quietly. His voice trembled, and I could see the unease starting to settle in. He knew something was up, but he wasn't ready to face it. I turned to him, my frustration pouring out. I'm talking about the way you've both been treating me. Like I don't matter. First, Easter, and now this. Whatever's going on. You've been keeping things from me for months, and I'm done pretending I don't notice. You're pushing me out. I could see my mom's face go tight, her jaw clenched. She wasn't used to being confronted like this. Max looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch, but I wasn't going to back down now. I was done letting them control the narrative, letting them exclude me and leave me in the dark. What do you want from us, then? My mom finally asked, her voice thick with frustration. What do you expect us to do? You're making this harder than it needs to be. I could feel the anger building up in me, but I held it in check. I wasn't just going to lash out. I was going to make them understand. And I was going to take control of the situation. I expect the truth. And I expect you both to stop lying to me. Stop pretending like I don't know what's going on. There was a long pause. I could see my mom's thoughts running behind her eyes. She wasn't ready to admit anything yet, but she could see that I was serious. I wasn't going to let her sweep things under the rug this time. So what now? She asked after a beat, her voice softer, but with a note of challenge. You want an apology? No, I said firmly. I don't want an apology. I want to know why you've been lying to me. I want to understand what's going on behind the scenes. What's so important that you can't be honest with your own daughter? Max's eyes flicked nervously between me and my mom. Maybe you're making this worse than it is, he mumbled, clearly trying to defuse the situation. It's not like we've been trying to hurt you. We just didn't know how to deal with it. Deal with what, Max? I shot back. Deal with the fact that I'm no longer part of this family dynamic? You both made it clear I'm not needed. And now you're all trying to make me feel guilty for even bringing it up. Max looked down at his hands, unwilling to meet my eyes. My mom was quiet for a moment, and I could feel the distance growing between us, like an invisible wall had been erected right in front of me. They were both complicit in this, and it was starting to make me sick. At that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them continue to treat me like this. If they wanted to push me out, fine. But they would learn what it meant to leave someone behind. I wasn't going to play the victim. I was going to take control of this. I had to. I stood up, my heart pounding, but my mind clear. You know, maybe you're right. Maybe I am overthinking things. But if you're going to keep treating me this way, maybe I'll just make myself scarce. I'm done trying to fit into a family that doesn't want me. My mom's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I paused at the door, letting the words hang in the air. I'm saying I've had enough. I've been patient with you both, but I'm not going to keep pretending I don't know what's really going on. I'll just step back. You can go on pretending everything is fine. But if you ever want to have a real conversation about what's going on, you know where to find me. I walked out of the house, feeling the tension lift off my shoulders, but also knowing it wasn't over. This wasn't about me walking away for good. No, this was about them understanding the consequences of what they'd done. The consequences of pushing me aside and treating me like I was invisible. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Not anymore. Over the next few days, I kept my distance. I didn't reply to texts or calls from my mom or Max. The silence was deafening, but something inside me told me that it wasn't enough to just walk away. I had to make them see the damage they'd done, and I was going to do it on my terms. It wasn't long before I started formulating my plan. It wasn't going to be some grand, dramatic gesture. No, it was going to be something slow, methodical. I'd let them come to me, let them think they could just fix things with an apology and some words. But I wasn't interested in any of that. I wanted them to feel the loss. I wanted them to feel what it was like when they didn't have me anymore, when their lives went on without me, and they had to live with the fact that they were the ones who pushed me out. And when they realized the truth, when they saw how badly they'd hurt me, they'd come crawling back. But by then, it would be too late. I'd learned something that week. It wasn't just about being the victim anymore. It was about reclaiming my power, and I would make them regret their actions. At first, I went quiet. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up for Sunday brunches or birthdays. I stopped being the one who sent holiday reminders or just checking in messages. For years, I had been the glue, organizing, hosting, comforting, smoothing over. I realized they only valued me when I was useful, and the moment I pulled back, silence. They didn't even seem to notice. At least, not right away. But behind the scenes, I was building something they never thought I could. Remember how I said I was always the one who brought people together? I turned that skill into something bigger. I'd started working in event design a few years ago, small gigs, friends' weddings, local fundraisers. But when I channeled the pain and betrayal into that work, something changed. I got sharper, bolder. I stopped second-guessing myself. Within 2 years, my name was being passed around in circles my family didn't even know existed: high-end venues, exclusive planners, art galleries. I'd built a name for myself, quietly, professionally, and I never said a word to them about it. They thought I was still doing little freelance things, as my mom once called it, right before suggesting I applied to be Max's assistant because he was so stressed with work. That conversation was the last time I took a call from her. But the real turning point came that third Easter. By then, I was running my own company. I had staff. My events were featured in magazines. And one of my clients, a generous woman who believed in second chances, offered me the opportunity of a lifetime: plan a high-profile charity gala for the city's largest children's hospital. The gala would be hosted at the historic Oakvale estate. Guess who just happened to be a regular donor and guest at every Oakvale event? Aunt Patty. And guess who she always brought along? My mom, Max. Sometimes my dad if he wasn't on one of his golf retreats. I planned that gala down to the second. From the custom ice sculptures to the carefully curated guest list. When I handed off the final seating chart to the event coordinator, I paused. "You can move anyone around except this table," I said, pointing to the one labeled family. It was placed directly beside the stage, just to the left of the spotlight, close enough to see everything, but not close enough to be seen. The night of the gala, I stayed mostly behind the scenes. I wore black, blended in with the staff, and kept an eye on everything through the comm system. But when it came time for the closing speech, the one honoring the event planner and team for making the night possible, I stepped forward. As I walked onto the stage, I locked eyes with my mother. She blinked. Once. Twice. Max looked like he'd seen a ghost. My aunt whispered something sharp under her breath, her eyes narrowing. I smiled warmly at the crowd and took the mic. "I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. This gala raised over $200,000 for the Pediatric Center. And I want to take a moment to thank the people who inspired me to pursue this work." I paused. My family. A few guests clapped. I looked toward their table. My family taught me how important it is to create spaces where people feel seen, where they belong. And sometimes, when you're not invited to those spaces yourself, you learn to build your own. The clapping grew louder. I saw my mom stiffen. Max looked down at his lap. Aunt Patty was already whispering to a waiter, probably trying to find a way out before dessert. I continued, my voice steady. "So thank you to those who pushed me out, who told me I was too sensitive, too much, not enough. Without you, I wouldn't be here tonight. You gave me the drive to create something bigger than myself. And I'm grateful." And with that, I handed the mic off and walked off stage to a standing ovation. They didn't approach me afterward. They didn't even make eye contact. They slipped out during the final toast, probably hoping no one noticed. But people did. I made sure of it. In the days that followed, I got a single email from my mom. It said, "You made your point." That was all. No apology. No explanation. Not even a request to talk. I didn't respond. Because yes, I had made my point. And the best part? I did it without yelling, without begging, without trying to make them love me. I simply removed myself and let the absence speak for itself. Now, I still host holidays. I still celebrate Easter with people who actually show up, friends who are like siblings, colleagues who become family. And when I post pictures of our egg hunts, the handmade decorations, the laughter, I don't post them out of spite. But if they happen to see them, I hope it stings, because I don't need revenge to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is thrive in the silence they left behind.